Welcome, Natalie, to our conversation about your strengths and the projects you've worked on and what's going on with your life. Maximum of 20 minutes, maybe shorter. Very welcome.
Thank you, John.
Please introduce yourself to the people that may be watching. Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing?
Thank you, John. Well, my name is Natalie Nielsen. I currently work within an area in Sweden that helps people who are unemployed reach their goals as regards job or education. I've been working here for 2 years. I'm also, in essence, I'm a job slash education slash leadership coach,
Mhm.
which brings into my passion of helping people develop and empowering people to reach their goals, whatever they may be. Prior to that, I completed a PhD in education, where my thesis focused on students who had been abroad and what they learned from their time abroad. So,
Mm,
tying into the internationalization of higher education, which is another topic that I'm very passionate about.
mm,
So, these are two tracks that run parallel throughout my professional life, the international and helping people grow at any level. I currently live in Sigtuna with my family, and my dream is to move somewhere where the sun shines more than a few months of the year.
mm.
So
Okay.
that's a goal that I'm starting to pan out the plan
There will be a spring and a summer here eventually.
eventually. But yeah, 6 months of dark is a bit long, but yeah.
Well, we have some common interests in coaching processes and education, and we've met each other once before. But today I'm going to ask you about some of the projects that you worked on that have worked out. So think of it could be a coaching situation, it could be a training situation, it could be other type of project at work. Something that was very difficult and you didn't know whether it would work out, but in the end it did. Some maybe a difficult position you were put into, and somehow it worked out. And what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I have three things that come to mind, but I think what I'll do is talk about the most recent one.
Okay.
In my current job, as I mentioned, we help people reach their goals as regards education and or work here in Sweden and contributing to diversity and inclusion in Swedish society. So I meet a lot of individuals from all over the world who have come to Sweden. Some of them speak Swedish, some of them don't. It's a very large span of different individuals with different backgrounds, both regarding education. Some have education, some don't. And of course, to get a job and be a part of society is the first step, because if you're not in that, should I say, if you're not in society by being in a job and getting access to all these things that Swedish societies offer, then you have, of course, the risk of becoming the opposite of included, which is
Right.
excluded. And I think, we can see that in Swedish society today. So I'm specifically thinking about an individual who was very highly educated, had applied for I don't know how many jobs, spoke Swedish, not fluently, and had just, was on a mission to get a job in her area. And she came to us, and I think she spent about 2.5 months with me.
Mm,
And she was very frustrated, very sad. And of course, I did all the techniques that I work with is okay, what works, what doesn't. We looked over her CV, her application letters, her LinkedIn, her presentation. We did interview training. And then she finally got an interview.
mm,
And she was all excited. And then a couple of weeks later, she got a no.
mm,
And she then, of course, got very sad. I wouldn't say broke down, but just felt hopeless. And I said, no, let's go. Come on, we're going to
mm,
continue. And a couple of weeks later, she got another interview, and she ended up landing that job.
mhm,
And I cannot tell you the persistence of her, of myself, and just looking for new ideas all the time. What path can we take? Can we look at this area or another area within her field? And finally she landed that job, and she was so grateful to me and wrote me the most beautiful message
mm,
um, that I've ever received in my professional life, how I had changed her life and how grateful she was. And that is why I stay in this field, is because I love to help individuals.
mm.
it wasn't impossible, but it was challenging because, you know, you have these steps you take, you have
Sure.
activities that you do with individuals, but when it doesn't work out, and for some people, when, you know, when they get really disappointed, it's almost like if you're not there to help them,
Right.
you know, then it could
Mm.
turn out a different way. But
But
I that is one thing that I'm super happy about.
okay. But when you look at what you did in that situation to turn around the situation, what would you say you were, well, your skills or what, oh, what worked? What did you do?
I think the decisive thing was just to coach this person into a different mindset. So
Hmm.
shifting mindset
How did you do that?
from talking about mindset and how your mindset affects the way you approach your day or
Hmm.
whatever it is you have to do. So, for example, if you have a setback, and many individuals don't have one when they
Mm.
seek employment, they have many,
Mm.
you know, constant, sorry, thank you for your application, we've moved on
Right.
with another. Or I had an individual who was in 5 different interview processes right towards the end
Mm.
and got a no from all of them, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So in that sense is when you think of a mindset is to, you know, don't look back, look at
Mm.
how far you've come,
Right.
and then learn from that and then focus on the next steps to take towards your goal.
But
And I
as
think
you say these things to these people, to your clients or the people that you coach, your students, what what particularly in your communication skills do you think that they're working? What makes them accept what you're saying?
I think it's part of them knowing my background, who I'm, and my role, and who I am, and how the relationship I build with these individuals. I've coached hundreds of people, if not more.
But if you're telling me to work on my mindset, how would you, uh, what would you say, or how would you say what you say?
I would ask you, you know, as you're asking me, and
Right.
you know, probably what is a challenge you faced,
Right.
and listen to you talk about that. And I would say, okay, so John, what works and what doesn't work? And then look at that, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and then why,
Okay.
and then how you think and feel about these things. So I also bring in the effective aspect of
Mm.
coaching, because the way we think, of course, affects how we feel. So if, for example, let's say this person wouldn't have had a job coach to work with and would have done this on her own,
Mm.
she wouldn't have had the ability, or not the ability, she wouldn't have had the opportunity
Mm.
to, you know, pose questions or share her
Right.
frustrations, and get someone to say, okay, well, maybe look at it this way, bring in a different perspective on
Okay.
this. Don't
So,
look at it as a failure, look
no.
at how far you've come.
But
And
what
then
I'm trying to get at is what your secret sauce is, and what about your nonverbal skills? What I mean, what are you actually doing to get acceptance? What do you think that you're doing?
um, I think the difficult thing now, John, has been that we, of course, do everything online,
Mm.
and meeting in person is not the same. But I think when I work with my clients, they very early on understand that I am doing this to help them, and I establish a relationship and a rapport with my clients that's very caring, and that
But
I want to.
if you think a client was one client was extremely difficult to build a relationship with, how did you turn that around?
Let me think. I really difficult client. Well, I've had clients who have been difficult in the sense where they would come and say, you know, I just want a job and I want a job now. Okay. You know, so, and I did everything in my power. And I remember this one client where
Mm.
he started with us, and like the week after, he was like, okay, what can you do for me? And I said, well, this is how we work. And I go through the plan. And then he just called me and said, you know, I want a job and I want a job now. And I said, well, I'll do everything in my power to see if I can get you the job.
Mm.
So the following week, I had an interview set up for him.
Okay.
And, you know, so I take concrete steps, and
Mm.
I think I'm very intuitive, and I'm an empathetic person. So I can
Mm.
feel very quickly what type of person I'm working with, if it's a person who is willing to share and willing to work, or not willing to share and not willing to work.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I set up the interview and the guy never showed up. And then the same thing happened again and again.
Right.
So then I simply said, you know what, I'm here to help you reach your goals. I'm happy to help you, but if this is going to work, you're going to need to work with me. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I think, yeah, I don't know if I'm getting to what you want to hear, but I think part of my strategy,
Mm.
or I think it's just who I am, John.
Mm.
I love people,
Mm.
and I think I can bring out good in people. And I haven't worked with very many clients that have been super difficult, more than that I realize in the end, this person doesn't really want to be helped. And that I think is the biggest challenge. And we are now moving to a new program
Mm.
called Kundval Rusta Matcha.
Okay, I want to go back to this.
Yeah.
I have to focus on one or two things here.
Okay.
And what I try to do is when I listen to your descriptions, I try to put words on, what are your strengths? What are you really doing? And my experience in talking to people or having these types of conversation, that the secret is often the combination of two opposites. So I see you as a very rational person,
Mhm.
a person who can plan, you can explain, you can and talk about it, you're knowledgeable, rational, but you're also describing an empathetic side and a soft side. And I noticed when you were talking about this first person, your voice would be softer, and that's also a way of, you can have this is the plan, this is what I do, here are the things you can do. But if you have a soft side that balances the rational with or the hard side with that often works, and that's maybe, I don't know, that's maybe one of the things that you're doing well. But it's like a triangle. You have the rational, the emotional or empathetic, but also the action oriented.
Yeah.
And you're very, you can be concrete, you can be specific, and you can be action oriented. So when you're combining this, if you see it as a triangle, rational, emotional, action oriented, that's a very good combination.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I am a very, what should I say, strategic
Mm,
thinking kind of
right.
person. I'm always with, if I work with
Mm,
people in other areas of life,
mm,
what is your goal?
mm,
Okay, why?
mm,
Work with the why, work with the how, and
right.
then we'll get you there.
Okay.
For example, I have a very good individual in my life who wants to change his or her life.
Mm,
And I said, okay, well, why is it? And work
mm,
on that. And then, we'll establish your goal.
mm,
And then we'll do a timeline and then how you're going to get there.
okay.
And that person was like, wow, you make it sound so simple. Well, it's not that difficult if you really think about it. Most
Mm,
people get caught in so many details and get caught in speculating about things.
mm,
What if this happens? Or then I have to do that. And what if that
mm.
doesn't work? And I said, we can speculate all the time, but it doesn't help us.
What is something a challenge that you have in the near future, or something that you'd like to improve about, or learn about, or no, do better? Is there something that comes to mind? It could be a challenge or a learning. This I want to be able to do better.
I don't know if I mean, this has nothing to do with work. Do you
No,
want
it's
to tell?
okay.
Okay. I think I have a big challenge ahead of me because I'm going through a life transition.
Hmm.
I have two wonderful teenagers who
Mm,
are transitioning out of the home very soon.
hmm.
I also have a mother who's elderly.
Mm,
So I'm at a point in my life where I am currently really being very mindful and grateful for what I have today
mm,
and enjoying it. But I know that when, in the next few years, my life is going to be very different. I'm going to have a household with no children at home.
mm,
My mother won't be around forever. So I think that's a challenge for me to, and I think I've recognized what it is I need to do. And that
mhm.
is, I need to probably, work more or get involved with more things rather than focusing.
If I may be personal a little bit, I mean, you don't have to tell me all the details or share what you want to share, but if you take your mother as an example, and we go back to this triangle, what are some things, rational steps you could take, emotional steps you need to take, and um, action that you need to take? I mean, if you could just give me a hint of how you can use that triangle and applying it to that personal situation, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm doing now is I'm spending a lot of time with my mother, so I'm very action
Uh,
oriented in that sense. I do everything that I can for her.
mhm,
I was there yesterday. I made her dinner.
mm,
I do things in her household. I talk to her. We share our memories, so that I take action. But the sitting down and sharing a meal, or just stroking her cheek
mm,
and talking about what a wonderful mother she is,
mm,
that pans into the emotional part. So,
mm,
and then I try to bring in the rational. I say, okay, mom, well, tomorrow, this is what's going to happen. And then I'll come back on Saturday and this is what we're going to do.
mm,
My dream is for you to come with me to Palma. So it's, the rational and the action is very much hand in hand, and the emotional, I think, floods through it all
mm,
in that sense.
mm,
So I'm doing that, but I know that, especially now during the pandemic, I think everybody understands that we can't take
mm,
life as is for granted.
mm.
So I think in if people dare to talk about it, I think everybody struggles with major life transition. Um,
Well, would you say now I'm going to back out of the personal and look at it more from a distance? Um, you flow of competency. I mean, it's when I first met you and we talked with us. Okay, this this is a very competent person with self knowledge and the rational knowledge and know-how and things to do. And I've just tried to put words on it, and I don't know why, but they have this metaphor of the triangle and these three things. Um, so when you look forward, if I were to give you some type of encouragement, is that to think of this triangle. Oh, what am I doing? How am I feeling? Oh, what's the plan? And I think that will help you in a lot of situations in your coaching and in your private life. And so, I mean, you have all these components of competency, and all that I can do in a short interview like that is just sort of, affirm and give you an affirmation for what you already are doing, and do wish you luck in the future.
Thank you. I mean, I could talk about other things that I've done
Hmm,
professionally.
right.
And I think for me, professionally, I think sometimes private life can be more challenging than professional life
Mm,
in that sense, because I guess because we have more emotions involved.
mm,
But I think what we can do is learn from our private life
right.
and our professional life and
Mm,
somehow bring those two together. So as you said, make a plan and see how that works, and how is it that you're thinking and feeling. And this is something I do in my coaching all the
mm,
time.
okay. But what did you get out of this conversation? We've been talking about 15 minutes or something like that. What?
Okay. I think it's very interesting, the questions you've asked and the way you present the triangle.
Mm,
And I think it has made me more aware of how I talk about what I do.
mm,
And I am super interested to see the results, of course, of this
mm,
short interview. But, sometimes it's hard to put words on what
right.
you do day to day.
Mm,
But I think what is part of my story, and part of, what should I say, the röda tråden,
mm,
is that I'm very goal oriented, and I am now trying to coach my daughter to reach her goals.
mm. But for
And
you, what something tomorrow? What's Alexa? One thing I can do tomorrow on the goals or the rational way of thinking, the planning, the action.
for me tomorrow, one of my
Yeah, for you
goals.
tomorrow, privately or at work. This is one
Um,
one step
well,
forward.
I'm working on goals all the time. I have a long-term goal that I'm
Mm,
working on. Then I have a pretty short-term goal because I'm taking a course now in leadership
mm,
development. So
mm,
my goal for tomorrow is, when I'm done with my workday, to complete an assignment.
mhm,
And I've already started studying or reading about that. So that's my short-term goal. My long-term goal, I'm working on a little bit all the time.
Mm.
So
But
yeah.
completing that assignment, what do you need to do tomorrow to be 100% sure you'll get that done?
Well, I've already started preparing, so I've read the literature,
Mm.
and I'm going to review it tomorrow again, and then I'm just going to do
What time?
the. Well, I work full time, so probably I will be done with my work day around 4, so maybe between 4:30 and 5.
Okay.
And something that I also do and encourage my clients, and I'm going to encourage you to, is to celebrate success, big and small. So when I'm done with that, I'm going to go see my neighbors and have a nice after work.
Okay, fine. All right. Thank you very much, Natalie. I'm going to stop now and
Thank you, John.
stop the recording, and we'll talk a little bit afterwards. And as I've mentioned, I'll be sending this back to you to see what you, with little subtitles, and see what you think about the whole thing. But I appreciate getting to know you. I appreciate your competency, and I appreciate your willingness to share. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John.